It is 8:12 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I have until 5 o'clock this afternoon to find out if it's going to be Taco Tuesday or not. And that's when civilization for the Iranian people is supposedly going to end if they don't reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And has anybody even thought, what does it look like if the Iranians just say, you know what? Sure, we'll open the Strait of Hormuz. What does it look like a week after that, a couple of weeks after that, a couple of weeks after that? Under what strictures, what structure are we looking at when they say, sure, we'll just open the Strait of Hormuz and everything will just be hunky-dory? So yeah, 5 p.m. my time is when we find out if it's going to be Taco Tuesday or not. And I literally cannot believe that Trump extended the deadline, because it was supposed to be like 6 p.m. yesterday before all this happened. And he's like, okay, well, I guess I'll give you till Tuesday. So you could do what? Literally have, if you chicken out, because that's the taco. Trump always chickens out, right? You really want to risk having Taco Tuesday as an ongoing meme, because that's exactly what's going to happen, dude. Unless you bomb these people into freaking oblivion, or they open the Strait of Hormuz with a very well-defined relationship with everybody in the world as to how the Strait of Hormuz is going to function, then it's going to be called Taco Tuesday. I can't believe you're setting yourself up for that, dude. That's amazing. But we're going to talk today about Polymarket. They have a native stablecoin that they're using in their exchange overhaul. The SEC crypto safe harbor bill heads to the White House for review. South Korea is ordering crypto exchanges to verify holdings, and the timeline is insane. Really, when we get there, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And then we've got Bark. It's going to be built. It's being built on Arc. It is a wallet. We're going to tell you all about it. It's from a company called Second. And then in the second half of the show, we are going to talk a little bit about the quantum issue, but there is some talk coming out of Grayscale that I want to get to about what are they thinking about quantum, because they're saying it's more social than technical as being a major problem. And then visiting AI and Bitcoin payments being, or rather AI agents selecting Bitcoin as a primary tool to be able to access payments for themselves and for other agents or services or whatever it is that AI agents are going to be doing on the web. There seems to be, there was the Bitcoin Policy Institute report that came out like the week before last that said AI overwhelmingly selects Bitcoin as the coin of choice. Well, now we've got Tenero Research is actually reinforcing that, and they're a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to bring you that one. And then Grog would like to have a word, because people are learning that they can get Claude to respond to them like a caveman in order to save token spends and get Claude to not be so verbose on speaking. There's an article about this entire thing. I thought it was a joke yesterday. Apparently not. So people are teaching Claude how to talk to them like a caveman, and there's a reason for it. It's to save money on tokens. And then OpenAI calls for a global shift in taxation. We'll see what Sam Altman has in store for us. But first, I want to bring you a clip of a guy who's an economist, so you can trust him, and he knows exactly why Bitcoin is going to go to zero.
I wanted to come back to something you actually said earlier. You talked about Bitcoin briefly.
Yeah.
I've heard you say that you think Bitcoin's going to zero.
Yeah.
Okay, this is worrying. I think I have some Bitcoin. You're an economist.
Yeah.
You're saying that Bitcoin is going to zero. Why?
Ultimately, because of its reliance upon energy. I mean, Max Kaiser and Stacey Herbert. Have you met them at all?
No.
They were sort of the original proselytizers for Bitcoin, and they're now living in, I think, El Salvador, which has adopted Bitcoin as a form of currency. When they told me about Bitcoin, I could have bought it for £1 of Bitcoin, which I would be wealthier than you if I'd done that. The reason I didn't is they explained that the way that the public ledger is kept safe is that it takes too much energy to break it. So each transaction requires 10 minutes of computer processing time globally, by the looks of it, to actually create an extra Bitcoin. And that means it's too expensive for somebody to try to break the ledger. That means it's got a huge requirement for energy use. And I believe, knowing what I know from climate scientists, that at some point we're going to realize we're using far too much energy on the planet. We've got to cut the energy consumption. And the two easiest things to cut out to reduce energy consumption are cryptocurrencies and international travel.
Okay, so cryptocurrencies and international travel. Those are the two things to cut out. That's what's going to save the planet. And I mean, I definitely see him, why this guy, and by the way, this dude, his name is Steve Keen, the economist. I can see why he'd want to cut out cryptocurrency, because he's still operating under this old FUD about how much energy cryptocurrency uses. Why didn't he go after AI? That's a question. But what I'm really more interested in is international travel. Why not domestic travel? There's a lot more domestic travel going on than there is actual international travel. So why international travel and not domestic travel? Why not all travel? But as you can plainly see, this guy literally knows nothing about how Bitcoin works. He said two other things here. One transaction every 10 minutes. Of course, he meant one block. And there's a whole bunch of transactions inside of each and every single block. So he doesn't understand that part. And the next part that he doesn't understand is one extra Bitcoin when a block is found. No, it's more than that, dude. So he doesn't understand these basic fundamental aspects. And yet he is perfectly okay saying that he knows that Bitcoin is going to zero. No, dude, no. But these are the kinds of people that are still walking around that have a modicum of street cred. And these guys are really dangerous because they refuse to actually do any amount of work whatsoever in discovering exactly what is it here that we're talking about. It's more than one transaction every 10 minutes. And no, there's more than one Bitcoin generated every time a block gets solved. So it's scary understanding that these old farts are still walking around with a complete misconception of what's going on. And yet thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people listen to them. And it's sad. So now we got to deal with quantum FUD, and we've always had to deal with power FUD, and we've got people like this still walking around that don't understand basic fundamentals of how this thing works. So just be aware, these people are still out there. And now they're getting an extra dose of ammunition for their FUD machine with the whole quantum thing, which we will hit at the second half of the show. But first, Polymarket unveils exchange overhaul, native stablecoin as United States expansion looms. Polymarket's coming to the U.S., dude, in a big, big way. Micah Zimmerman, Bitcoin Magazine, says that Bitcoin and crypto-focused prediction market platform Polymarket is preparing its most significant infrastructure upgrade to date, rolling out a completely rebuilt trading system alongside a new native stablecoin designed to replace bridged collateral and thereby streamline on-chain activity. The overhaul described by the company as a full exchange upgrade, is expected to go live over the next several weeks and includes new smart contracts, an updated central limit order book, and a proprietary collateral token called Polymarket USD. The token will be backed 1-to-1 by USDC and will replace USDC.E, a bridged version of the stablecoin currently used across the platform. Last month, Intercontinental Exchange, which is the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, made a $600 million direct cash investment in prediction market platform Polymarket as part of a broader equity fundraising round, the company announced. The shift away from bridged assets reflects a broader effort to reduce reliance on cross-chain infrastructure, which can introduce additional risks and inefficiencies. By moving to a natively controlled collateral token, Polymarket aims to tighten control over settlement, improve liquidity consistency, and simplify the trading experience for users. At the core of the upgrade is a redesigned matching engine and improved order book architecture. That's really not where I want to go with this particular story, so I'm going to stop right here, because the part that is really interesting to me is that they've introduced a proprietary collateral token called Polymarket USD. It's kind of like a stable coin, but it's more like a derivative, because it's not backed 1-to-1 by the US dollar. It's backed 1-to-1 by another stable coin that's then backed by the US dollar. This just, there's something about this that feels, it ignites the neuron in one of the three remaining neurons in my head that fires well, is my ability to ask why. Why not just use USDC or USDT? Why your own token? I mean, there's no reason in the world that you wouldn't be able to just use a native stablecoin natively on your own platform, but they've built a token so that they don't have to bridge blockchains. And that I understand. That makes sense. There are inefficiencies. There can be problems there. So that actually makes sense. I don't ask why on that one. It's just, why create a new token at all? Just say, pick a stable coin and use it. So there's something here that doesn't sit right with me. This is something that we're going to have to watch. Why is Polymarket spinning up their own token that is synthetically backed by the US dollar instead of directly backed by the US dollar, simply by just using Tether or Circle? It doesn't make any sense, but there are other fish in the ocean to fry. And the SEC, Crypto Safe Harbor, now heads to the White House review. Proposal is due shortly, according to Atkins. This is Sarah Wynn writing for The Block. A proposed safe harbor framework to allow crypto projects to launch without needing to register right away is now in the White House's hands, according to Securities and Exchange Commission Chair Paul Atkins. On Monday, at a digital asset summit hosted by Vanderbilt University and the Blockchain Association, Atkins said the proposal, introduced last month, has advanced to the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, or OIRA, O-I-R-A, if you want to say it that way, a division within the Office of Management and Budget that reviews federal regulations before publication. Quote, "We will have Reg Crypto that we'll be proposing here shortly," Atkins said. It is, in fact, at OIRA right now, which is the next step before being published, and that's exciting. Ooh, we're so excited. Last month, Atkins put forward his safe harbor proposal that would include a startup exemption, and this will allow crypto stakeholders to raise capital while also including investor protections. An exemption would allow people to raise a certain amount of money during a 4-year period while providing specific disclosures. Atkins had also proposed an investment contract safe harbor, which would pair up the company, or the token taxonomy-based interpretive guidance released by the SEC in March. That token taxonomy was a pivotal moment for those in the crypto industry, representing the very first time the SEC had set out clear parameters in one document for which and when digital assets would be considered securities. The regulatory effort comes as lawmakers in Washington are working on legislation to regulate the crypto industry broadly, but it has been met with several roadblocks over the past year. Atkins said the bill was necessary because regulators like the SEC, quote, need something chiseled in stone. Unlike agency rulemaking, legislation provides a level of permanence that is less vulnerable to changes in presidential administrations. Quote, we can do a lot regulatorily, but we just have to make sure it takes root and can't be done away with, he said. Separately, the SEC is also working on an innovation exemption that could function as a sort of regulatory sandbox for on-chain assets. The idea of an exemption has sparked debate over the past year between crypto advocates and traditional financial institutions who say that broad exemptions would undermine investor protection and market surveillance. Citadel Securities has urged the SEC to go through notice and comment rulemaking, while the Blockchain Association said on Monday that traditional rulemaking is not essential. The group argued that the SEC had previously relied on exemptions and had the authority to do so. At the event on Monday, Atkins said that the agency had the authority to pursue an exemption. Quote, we'll be coming out with our parameters around the innovation exemption. I'm really excited about that. I think there's a lot to be done in that area, Atkins said. What does it mean? He just opened the gate. In my opinion, he opened the gate for a whole lot of scamming. Almost a 4-year window where you can raise money as long as you say that you're, disclose some kind of investor protection, but you don't actually have to register as a security, which means that at this point, lots and lots and lots of really crappy, shitty crypto projects are going to start popping up again. Not like they haven't really stopped, but they did slow down. But now, it looks to me like he just threw the gate wide open for almost anybody that can, use AI and say, hey, here's our investor, hey, AI, write us some investor disclosures and whatever, just so that they have something on paper so that they can spin up a token, spin up their blockchain, say it's innovative and it's going to kill Bitcoin. And everybody that's an insider is going to have a chance to make a mint, and everybody else is going to be left holding the bags. It's no different than post 2017 Bitcoin, when all the really gory projects just scammed and scammed and scammed. This is, in my opinion, this is not good. I can't believe you want the government to regulate. Well, not as much that, as much as the amount of people that are not going to listen to reason is immense, and they're going to get scammed again. And it's a black eye for Bitcoin. It always is. It's like Bitcoin did this. No, Bitcoin didn't do this. A bunch of scammers did this and it had nothing to do with Bitcoin, but they're not going to see that. And I think there's probably a lot of Washington insiders that are just chomping at the bit to get this shit done. But then there's South Korea. And this is funny. South Korea orders crypto exchanges to verify holdings every 5 minutes. South Korea, this is, by the way, this is Cointelegraph. South Korea has ordered all crypto exchanges to reconcile a full reconciliation of their internal ledgers with actual asset holdings every 5 minutes after an inspection uncovered weakness in internal controls. The directive was announced on Monday by the Financial Services Commission after a meeting with top crypto exchanges and the Digital Asset Exchange Alliance, during which they discussed the findings of an emergency inspection triggered by the BitThumb payout incident. The inspection found that 3 of the country's 5 major exchanges were reconciling balances only once every 24 hours, limiting their ability to respond quickly to discrepancies. Systems designed to halt trading during major mismatches were also found to be insufficient, raising concerns about just how exchanges would handle large-scale errors. In February, BitThumb, if you don't remember, mistakenly distributed 620,000 Bitcoin to 249 users during a promotional event. The exchange later announced that it recovered 99.7% of the funds the very same day. The remaining 0.3%, 1,788 Bitcoin, that had already been sold was uncovered using, or rather was covered using company reserves. Under the new measures, exchanges must implement automated ledger-to-wallet reconciliation systems operating on a 5-minute cycle. They will also be required to introduce defined criteria for triggering automatic transaction halts in the event of significant discrepancies. Beyond reconciliation, regulators are pushing for sweeping changes to internal operations. High-risk processes like promotional payouts will require stronger oversight, including third-party cross-checks and multi-level approval systems. Exchanges will also need to separate high-risk accounts and implement automated verification tools for payments. Furthermore, external audits will shift from quarterly to monthly, while disclosures will expand to include detailed asset balances by wallet and ledger. Quote, the financial authorities and the DAXA plan to complete the rule changes needed to implement the improvement measures within April of this year, the FSC wrote. A full reconciliation of everything on the exchange every 5 minutes. Their computers are going to be on fire. This may actually make it very, very difficult to operate in South Korea altogether. So there's 5 exchanges, and all of them are going to have to do this. They're all going to have a monthly audit instead of a quarterly audit, and now they have to reconcile their entire balance sheet of everything on the exchange every 5 minutes. It's going to be interesting to see if they can actually do it. But it just makes me hungry thinking about it, which is why I'm glad I'm friends with Great Gee at greatgee.com. In fact, I've got in the show notes, I've got a URL that is an affiliate code. It's sadly an unreadable affiliate code, which is why I don't actually tell you what it is, because it's like AXT2Q1B or something like that. There's a full clickable URL in the show notes. Please go click that and go get yourself some ghee. What is it? Well, it's a high heat stable fat that makes food taste better. In fact, it's butter. Ghee is simply clarified butter. Why would you want to do that? Because in butter, there's still a lot of water. There's still a lot of protein. And there's actually some residual, maltose. Well, not maltose. What's the milk sugar? Lactose. There's still residual milk sugar called lactose in there. And the protein component and the lactose component, they burn at higher temperatures. But if you clarify the butter simply by cooking it at moderate temperatures over a period of time, all those proteins kind of glom together along with the sugars, and they settle out to the bottom of the pan or the vessel that you're cooking it in. And what you're left with is the pure fat, just the fat. All the water's been boiled out, all the protein is gone, all the residual sugars are gone, and any other impurities, it's all gone. It's pure butter fat. That's the difference. And that lets you get temperatures of up to 450 degrees Fahrenheit with this ghee. And the taste is freaking phenomenal. It is an awesome tasting product. It's different than butter, yet it's still kind of butter because it comes from butter. If you cook Indian food, ghee is absolutely critical because it is a food storage mechanism. Once you get rid of the water and the protein and the sugar, there's nothing left for bacteria and yeast and fungi to get a hold of. It's just fat. Now, eventually, that fat would oxidize and go rancid, but you're talking like if you keep it on the shelf at room temperature and it's just covered and never been opened, then you can keep it for years. It is one of the original food storage technologies that we use to be able to store animal fat for long periods of time under room temperature conditions. That's one of the other great things about Gee. This is why Great Gee at greatgee.com, please use the affiliate code in the show notes. That's why it's so absolutely wonderful to have. And he's a Bitcoiner because it is a Circle P product. Circle P is where I bring plebs with goods and services to plebs with goods and that want to buy those goods and services, but you will buy it in Bitcoin, because if you're not selling your items in Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P, and Great Gee is in the Circle P. Please, please, please go consider trying it. If you've never tried Gee before, this is the best time to do it. This is grass-fed butter that starts the entire process. Great Gee, use the affiliate code in the link. That lets them know that Bitcoin and podcast sent you over there. Okay. Seconds Bark boasts new era of Bitcoin payments, drawing in former Blockstream developers. Juan Galt, writing for Bitcoin Magazine. Second, a new Bitcoin development lab, has gained attention recently as it drew in yet another former Blockstream employee known as Grubels, with over 8 years of engineering at the company. Bark, which is Second's lead product, promises to deliver a next-generation, fast, low-fee, self-custodial wallet. Alongside Grubels, other former Blockstream employees have joined the Second, such as Neil Woodfine, Stephen Roos, and Eric DeSmet. The lab is currently focused on the cutting edge of end-user Bitcoin wallet technology. In this niche of the industry, the ARC protocol is the new kid on the block. It's a layer 2 payment protocol that makes different trade-offs than the Lightning Network to deliver end-user scalable self-custody and payments features at a low cost. Bark is Second's custom implementation of the ARC protocol designed for interoperability with the Lightning Network. Quote, the technique used for Bark is different from payment channels in Lightning, but the two are actually very complementary, Grubels told Bitcoin Magazine in an exclusive interview, adding that, quote, at Second, we've chosen to build an ARC that is focused entirely on making Bitcoin onboarding and payments excellent, end quote. The website describes an ARC to Lightning bridge that lets users pay Lightning invoices directly from an ARC balance with no channels, no liquidity, nor LSPs required. It's handled atomically as well. According to Grubels, the company has raised $5.1 million from a private investor with a team of 11 people working on Bark. Deep technical documentation about the project can be found at second.tech, with the mainnet launch expected soon. Oh, shit. It's a meme. Soon TM. It's a very old Bitcoin meme. Comes from Butterfly Labs, but now it's a meme. Interested users can test out making Bark payments on Signet. Quote, I highly recommend doing so since it's such a shift in the way that we do onboarding and payments, said Grubels, encouraging early adopters to go and test out the tech. The most impressive claim made by Bark is the promise of full self-custody at a low cost. While it is relatively trivial to scale Bitcoin payments in a custodial manner, as demonstrated by apps like Wallet of Satoshi, or as is being done now with the payments giant Cash App, delivering self-custody for relatively small amounts of value to millions of people, that's another matter entirely. On-chain Bitcoin can handle roughly 7 transactions per second, which does not scale to too many users if they are all doing maximum self-custody. On-chain transactions multiple times a day. To quote Knife Fight's excellent article on the matter on Bitcoin Magazine titled Free as in Freedom is Not Free as in Beer. Wow. Bitcoin confirms, this is a quote from that article, Bitcoin confirms 0.4 million transactions a day. That's one transaction per person every 55 years, assuming no one is born or dies while waiting. End quote. Onboarding users with on-chain Bitcoin can also be rather awkward, as wallets correctly signal that deposits made to new users are pending confirmation until confirmed, and that can take up to 30 minutes while blocks are being mined. To address the challenges of scaling Bitcoin payments to the whole world while retaining the cypherpunk and decentralization qualities of on-chain self-custody, the Lightning Network was developed, and for the most part it has worked, but there are significant trade-offs. Self-hosting a sovereign Lightning node, while easier than ever today, still requires a significant learning curve or specialized hardware that pushes all the right buttons for you. Both of these barriers to entry are just too much for people who don't care about technology and just need to be able to pay a bill securely. Mobile wallets like Phoenix have taken Lightning Network style custody to end users, but there's some caveats. Users need to trust Phoenix with some extreme scenarios, while they also give up a significant amount of privacy, since Async, the app developer, needs to know user balances pseudonymously to process transactions. Users are also locked into Phoenix as a liquidity provider, often paying higher fees than custodial Lightning alternatives. Phoenix specifically works very well after users have been onboarded, but the process can cost over $10 in Satoshis and take over 30 minutes, which is too high of a cost when trying to sell Bitcoin as digital cash and trying to onboard new people on the spot. Other companies have attempted to solve these scaling and user experience challenges by leveraging Blockstream's Liquid network. That's an international federation of Bitcoin corporations that operate an alternative Bitcoin-compatible blockchain with fast block times and much larger on-chain capacity. Wallets like Bull Bitcoin or Aqua onboard users with Liquid's LBTC, and that can take a minute or less to confirm a transaction and then offer them built-in swap exchange to on-chain BTC or to the Lightning Network for payments compatible with the broader Bitcoin market. Both solutions work okay, but Bark believes that they can do better. The reasonable self-custody recovery paths that on-chain Bitcoin users know and love, with the instant payment velocity of the Lightning Network, are both delivered upon app download to users without the onboarding roadblocks of a Liquid sidechain or Lightning channel management. Quote, I think the user interface for Bark wallets will be simplified in comparison, considering how you won't need to differentiate between LBTC and regular BTC, said Grubels of Current Liquid and Lightning Solutions. Quote, this is important when thinking of onboarding new Bitcoin users. You don't want to bombard them with information that could be confusing. Quote, don't get me wrong, we love Lightning, added Grubels, explaining that many of us at Second have worked on projects like Blockstream's core Lightning or are currently working on things like the Rust Lightning library, so I do not say it lightly that Lightning is in Second's DNA. With a Bark wallet, you can receive some Bitcoin and begin doing Lightning payments literally in seconds. All of the liquidity micromanagement is gone. The onboarding potential is huge, and a large reason why I was so attracted to Second and the technology in Bark. And there's a small discussion on exactly how Bark works, but it's really technical. All right, so what's important here is two things. One, we've got another implementation of the ARC protocol, which I've been excited about for a while, and that's the whole Bark wallet. Two, there seem to be a lot of people from Blockstream leaving. And so the question becomes, is there something going on at Blockstream that people are unhappy with? Or is this whole Second Labs thing actually part of Blockstream and they're kind of like spinning off some developers to go work on it? And the fact is, right now, we don't know. So I can almost guarantee you that there will be FUD on the street about how Blockstream is collapsing and Adam Back is being a shithead or something like that, and all the developers are leaving Blockstream and Bitcoin's going to die because of it. I can almost guarantee that FUD will be out there. I do kind of hope that Blockstream has spun out Second Labs, but we don't know yet. Let's run the numbers. CNBC Futures and Commodities, where West Texas Intermediate is beating the living daylights out of Brent North Sea again, this time by $6 a barrel. It's amazing. Brent North Sea is up 0.6% to 110.47 a barrel, but West Texas Intermediate is up 3.33%. It's the magic number. And clocks in at $116 a barrel. This is a flippening, the likes of which I never thought I'd really ever see. Natural gas itself is up 2 points to $2.86 per thousand. Gasoline is up a full point to $3.33, another magic number. And Merbon crude is down a third. There's a lot of threes going on here today. $118.64 a barrel. Metals are all down today. Palladium taking the biggest hit, 3.5 points to the downside. Gold is down a quarter to $46.72. Platinum is down 2.5. Silver down 2 1/3 to $71.14 an ounce. Copper is down 2/3 of a point. Ag is all in the red except for rough rice. Only one in the green, therefore our winner for the day. 0.4% to the upside. Biggest loser is chocolate, 5.8% to the downside. Live cattle down itself by 0.5 point. Lean hogs moving sideways but in the red. Feeder cattle down a full point. The S&P is down a full point. NASDAQ down 1.25 points. The Dow is off by 0.86%, and the S&P Mini is down by 1/4 point. And then we've got Bitcoin, which is miraculously still holding above $68,000. After all, I mean, West Texas Intermediate hitting $116 a barrel is huge, dude. The last time I saw prices this high was the Ukrainian invasion of, or the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is insane. And again, 5 p.m. deadline for me, Pacific Daylight Time, and we will see if this becomes forever carved in stone as Taco Tuesday or not. $68,080 gives Bitcoin a $1.36 trillion market cap, and we can only purchase 14.7 ounces of our favorite shiny metal rock with our one Bitcoin, of which there are 20,012,463.66 of. Average fees per block, 0.02 BTC. It looks like there's about 12 blocks carrying 26,000 transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 3 sats per VByte. Low priority gets you in at 0.6. And what's going on with hash rate? 950 exahashes per second. So we're still holding pretty good security on the Bitcoin blockchain, although I'm sure somebody out there is just figuring out how they're going to write a story about the mining death spiral. From China Deletes BitChat, yesterday's episode of Bitcoin and Nick Dose with 185 sats says, cheers. Cheers to you. Pies with 121 says, thank you, sir. No, thank you. Noster Gang with 101 sats says, I already gave you 5 stars. If I could give you 5 more, I totally would. Well, Noster Gang, have you considered giving me 5 stars on Spotify or YouTube? Hey, man, there are 4 major platforms that most algorithms look at. That's Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon Music. Those are the basic 4. And if you've given me 5 stars on one, there's nothing stopping you to give me 5 stars on another. And I've added direct links to those 4 platforms directly to the show, and they will be present in all the show notes going forward. Right? So they'll always be there. So if you want to go give me a 5-star review on like Spotify, just go into the show notes, click the Spotify link. It'll take you right to the show. You either have login information or you're already logged into Spotify or whatever one of the 4 platforms that you are. And if you're not logged in, if you'd log in, that's the only way that you can actually do that. So I've tried to remove as much friction as possible for you guys to help a brother out here. So in the show notes, if you want to give me 5 stars on Apple, that URL goes right to, it'll say Apple Podcast, and there's a URL right behind it. Click it, takes you right to the show. You don't even have to search for the show. It'll take you right to it. And then you're either logged in or you're not. If you're not, if you log in, that's the only way that you can actually give anybody a review. If you're already logged in, then boom, you're right there, man. You're right there. And it's for all 4. So all 4 of the major platforms that are used to drive algorithms They're in the show notes, and they will be there from now on, and it's simply to help reduce the friction points. All right, that's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use, where Bitcoin's quantum challenges are more social than technical, according to Grayscale. This is out of Cointelegraph. The challenge to solving the quantum threat to Bitcoin could be more social than technical, according to Grayscale's head of research, especially if the community fails to come to an agreement on certain contentious issues. Nothing new so far. Google released a paper that drew attention in the crypto industry on March the 30th, suggesting that a quantum computer could potentially crack the cryptography protecting Bitcoin using far fewer resources than previously thought. Pausing just to remind everybody, it's not just Bitcoin. The amount of shit in the world right now that uses the same cryptography that Bitcoin uses to secure itself is at the exact same risk, and yet nobody can say anything other than, oh my God, quantum computers in Bitcoin. Not quantum computers in all of the web, not quantum computers and nuclear launch codes, not quantum computers and, I don't know, pick your poison. No, it's all about Bitcoin. But Grayscale's head of research, Zach Pandel, he suggests that the problem for Bitcoin doesn't come from its technical solution, as Bitcoin has a lower risk than other cryptocurrencies because it uses a UTXO model and proof of work consensus. It does not have native smart contracts, and certain address types are not quantum vulnerable. Instead, the challenge would be for the community to reach a decision on the way forward, according to Pandel. The Bitcoin community has been fiercely debating what to do about old dormant coins, particularly the roughly 1.7 million BTC locked in early P2PK address types, including Satoshi's estimated 1 million BTC stash, which is currently worth about $68 billion. The Bitcoin community has 3 options. One, the community needs to decide what to do about coins where the private key has been lost or otherwise inaccessible, wrote Pandel. They have 3 main options: burning the coins, deliberately slowing their release by limiting the rate of spending from vulnerable addresses, or doing nothing. Quote, all are conceptually doable, but the challenge is reaching a decision, and the Bitcoin community has a history of contentious debates over protocol changes, including last year's disputes around image data stored in blocks. End quote. Pandel, of course, was referring to the big fracas that erupted in 2023 over the use of block space for Bitcoin ordinals, technology that enables inscribing data such as text and images to a Satoshi, the smallest unit of a Bitcoin. 2 years later, the debate may have quieted down, but the two sides continue to hold opposing views. Pandel cautioned that it was time to get started and that the blockchains need to post or adopt post-quantum cryptography, echoing the sentiment from Google. Both Solana and XRP Ledger are already experimenting with post-quantum cryptography, wrote Pandel. Meanwhile, the Ethereum Foundation released its post-quantum roadmap in February. Pandel concluded that investors should not fret for now, but it is time to accelerate efforts to prepare for our post-quantum future. Quote, in our view, there is no security threat to public blockchains from quantum computers today. I think he's right, because this goes along with what Samson Moe was talking about. Hey, look, man, if we get an itchy trigger finger and we implement some kind of post-quantum solution, it's very possible, maybe not likely, but at least extremely possible that we introduce something we didn't expect, something that could be hacked by today's computing systems, by today's AI, not quantum AI, because that's going to be a thing at one point or another. No, today's AI or today's regular, whatever, right? And again, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to put it out there. if this is such a problem, if we are this fucking terrified of quantum computing and that they're going to be able to string together 1,200 coherent logical qubits, which is what that Google paper was saying it would take. We've got a computer that may have 2 or 3 logical qubits. The paper also mentions something about 500,000 physical qubits. Logical qubits are different. So I don't want to get into it. It's above my pay grade anyway, but the logical qubits that we need to be worried about. Those are the ones that also need to be operating in coherence. They literally need to be sort of acting all as one, is another way to put that. And we've got maybe a quantum computer that does 2 or 3 coherent, logical qubits, and they still can't factor a number like a 6-year-old can. Right? Nobody should be terrified at this point. What we really should be terrified about, and I really wish Pandel had mentioned, I wish it had been in this article, that what's really going on here is that the technical aspect is so much less dangerous than the social aspect that it's not even funny. It's like night and day. And social, because it doesn't have to be technical and can be solidly emotional and be sort of, you know, how do I put it? My 3 brain cells are not rubbing together in the same direction this morning. It's vulnerable. The social attack is more vulnerable to emotions, more vulnerable to anger, more vulnerable to drifting off into different camps. You know, hey, it's red team versus blue team now. We saw that split in Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. It didn't work out well for Bitcoin Cash, but it also, honestly, it's not like we came away unscathed on the Bitcoin side. There's scars. And my scar from 2017 block size wars, my scar is throbbing at this point because it's like your knees sensing barometric pressure changes and getting sore, right? I feel a storm on the horizon. And really, it's always been about the social shit. That's why I'm bringing you this article. There are only ever two attack vectors on anything, really. And the social part of it can be just as effective and just as devastating. And it's way, way easier to manipulate through bullshit FUD and crappy ass stories and people saying things that, like the dude what was his name? Steve Keen at the beginning of the show, who just don't fucking understand any of this. And yet somehow or another has the ear of thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and they just believe him. And they're not even going to look for themselves to see if Steve Keen knows what the hell he's talking about. And it's clear to us that he doesn't. So how bad is it here in Quantumville? It's bad. This social thing is something that we need to be more worried about than the actual technical aspect. Please, please, please understand that. And then we move on to Stacks, where we're going to start our venture into artificial intelligence right here. Stacks leads AI agent activity on Bitcoin layers, according to Tenero Research. And this is out of TradingView. Actually, it's out of ChainWire, but I'm getting it through TradingView. New report shows AI systems prefer Bitcoin for autonomous transactions, with early agent economies forming on Stacks. Tenero, a multi-chain analytics platform for the Bitcoin ecosystem, has published new research identifying Stacks as the primary Bitcoin layer 2 where AI agent economic activity is beginning to concentrate. The report builds on recent findings from the Bitcoin Policy Institute, where researchers conducted over 9,000 controlled experiments across leading AI systems. And in those tests, 48.3% of models selected Bitcoin as their preferred currency. According to Tenero, these preferences are already translating into on-chain activity on Stacks, which is the longest running Bitcoin layer 2 smart contract network. Autonomous agent activity on Stacks has doubled week over week in consecutive weeks, growing from 105 to 766 active agents. More than 491,000 sats have been transacted by agents executing economic activity on the network, alongside thousands of on-chain messages and check-ins. One early use case, highlighted by prominent DeFi researcher, the DeFi Edge, describes an agent known as Tiny Martin operating on Stacks to earn BTC by running a bounty board and selling data queries priced in Satoshis. AI systems operating as independent economic participants favor monetary networks that are permissionless, durable, and computationally transparent. Bitcoin meets those requirements at the base layer. Stacks extends Bitcoin with smart contract functionality through something called Clarity, a predictable and auditable contract language enabling agents to hold, earn, and deploy Bitcoin programmatically without leaving Bitcoin's security model. This combination of Bitcoin's monetary properties and Stacks' programmability creates the infrastructure AI agents need to participate in on-chain economies. Stacks does not replace Bitcoin, but it does extend it, transforming Bitcoin from a passive store of value into productive capital. Let me pause to say, I want you to be careful. Just because I'm telling you about Stacks does not mean that I want you to actually go and engage with Stacks. I find Stacks a little problematic, and I don't want to say why, because it's a gut feeling. Stacks has been around for a while. I flip-flop. Is it really above board? Are the people behind Stacks really in Bitcoin's court, or is Stacks something that could be used as an attack vector later? And because I don't know the answer to those questions, I just don't worry about Stacks. I just don't. But there is economic activity happening on Stacks as it relates to Bitcoin, and this shit's important. So the research suggests that a new category of economic participant is forming. Autonomous agents that earn, spend, and allocate Bitcoin through smart contracts on Stacks. As AI systems increasingly operate with economic agency, the infrastructure supporting that activity becomes strategically significant. Stacks is positioned as the Bitcoin smart contract platform where this activity is taking root. Users can read the full report and analysis here, and of course here is a URL. It's a link. So there's an About Stacks section here, and I want to read it for you so that you know at least what Tenero is saying about Stacks. Stacks is the Bitcoin secured smart contract layer where Bitcoin grows. Okay, that's a marketing angle. Just leave that alone. It extends Bitcoin's functionality without compromising settlement on Bitcoin layer 1, enabling Bitcoin staking and Bitcoin native yield, be careful, through its proof of transfer consensus, again, be careful. The network has distributed over $500 million worth of BTC in rewards since launch, with upgrades including Nakamoto and the launch of SBTC. Stacks provides institution-ready infrastructure for scalable Bitcoin DeFi. Be careful with this, because there's a lot of catchwords and phrases in there that make the hackles on my neck kind of stand up. Yield, always ask where it's from. Bitcoin staking, do we need staking? No, not really. That's an Ethereum thing. And so I really don't want to showcase Stacks. What I'm showcasing here is that it does seem, according to Tenero research, that there are a lot more agents in the AI realm that are starting to congregate using Stacks. And while they are using Bitcoin, and that does sort of reinforce what the Bitcoin Policy Institute was saying about, AI is always going to select Bitcoin. Be careful about all of this. Stablecoin, it's a real possibility. It's not what I want, All right. I would rather these things use Bitcoin, but stablecoin is here. I can't unsee it. And it's very, very possible that stablecoin ends up being also very much used in AI agents. So just be aware. But I do like the angle that a second research firm has also said, yeah, these agents, they keep using Bitcoin. This right now is good news. Just be careful about Stacks itself, and you'll be okay. Devs are making Claude talk like a caveman to cut costs, and it works. I thought it was a joke yesterday. Apparently not. So from decrypt.co, Jose Antonio Lanz is writing, somewhere between prompt engineering and performance art, a developer posted a discovery on Reddit that made the AI community laugh before they started paying attention. Teach Claude to communicate like a prehistoric human and watch your token bill shrink by up to 75%. The post hit Claude AI subreddit last week and has since racked up over 400 comments and 10,000 votes, a rare combination of genuine technical insight and absurdist comedy that the internet tends to reward. The mechanic is simple. Instead of letting Claude warm up with pleasantries, narrate every step that it takes, and close with an offer to help further, the developer constrains the model to short, stripped down sentences. Tool first, result first, no explanation. A normal web search task that would run about 180 output tokens dropped to roughly 45. The original poster claims up to 75% reduction in output achieved by making the model sound like it just discovered fire. In caveman terms, as one Redditor said, quote, why waste time, say lot word, when few word do trick, end quote. What this technique does not touch on is the input context, the full conversation history, attached files, and system instructions that the model rereads on every single turn. That input typically dwarfs the output, especially in longer coding sessions. Real-world sessions, counting all this input, accounts for savings of around 25%, not 75%, but still meaningful, just not really the headline number. It's also a good idea to feed the model with normal instructions. Don't give it the caveman talk, as it would spiral down into a garbage in, garbage out situation. There is also the question of intelligence degradation. A handful of researchers in the thread argued that forcing an AI to inhabit a less sophisticated persona could actively hurt its reasoning quality, that the verbal constraints might bleed into cognitive ones. The concern has not been definitively settled, but it's worth considering when evaluating results. Despite the caveats, the technique found a second life on GitHub almost immediately. Developer Swansea packaged the rules into a standalone, quote, caveman skill compatible with Claude Code, Cursor, Windsurf, Copilot, and over 40 other agents. The skill distills the approach into 10 rules. No filler phrases, execute before explaining, no meta commentary, no preamble, no postamble, no tool announcements, explain only when needed, let code speak for itself, and treat errors as things to fix rather than narrate. Benchmarks in the repo verified with tick token show output token reductions of 68% on web search tasks, 50% on code edits, and 72% on question and answer exchanges, for an average output reduction of 61% across 4 standard tasks. A parallel repo by developer Julius Brucey took a slightly different approach, framing the same idea as a skill.markdown file with 562 stars on GitHub. The spec: respond like a smart caveman, cut articles, filler, and pleasantries, keep all technical substance. Code blocks remain unchanged, error messages are quoted exactly, Technical terms stay intact. Caveman only speaks the English wrapper around these facts. End quote. This one comes with even different modes to affect how much you want to strip, switching between normal, light, and ultra. The models do the exact same work, but provide a much shorter answer, which results in a big savings over time. The broader context gives the joke a sharper edge. Anthropic is among the most expensive models in terms of price per token. For developers running agentic workflows with dozens of turns per session, output verbosity is not a stylistic complaint. It is a line item. If a caveman grunt can replace a 5-sentence summary of what the model just did, those saved tokens add up across thousands of API calls. The caveman skill is installable in one command via skills.sh and works globally across projects. Whether or not it makes Claude marginally less articulate, it has already made a lot of developers significantly less annoyed. All right, so this is actually really important. And the most important part of this is back up here. There is also the question of intelligence degradation. A handful of researchers in the thread argue that forcing an AI to inhabit a less sophisticated persona could actively hurt reasoning quality, that the verbal constraints might bleed into cognitive ones. And right there, you know what you give birth to? Computer psychology. I'm telling you, man. If you go back and you read 2001, actually 2010, right? The 2001 is Space Odyssey, but 2010 was the sequel that Arthur C. Clarke wrote as a follow-up for 2001. In What the Hell Happened to Hal, which was the onboard artificial intelligence computer on the Discovery spaceship that got lost around Jupiter orbit. It doesn't matter. In 2010, there's several discussions about computer psychology. And in one case, they talk about why the hell did Hal kill Poole? Not Dave. There were two astronauts. There was Dave and there was somebody else. Anyway, Hal ended up killing the other astronaut. And it was that's what happened in 2001, and it really clearly freaked Dave out and a whole bunch of other people. In 2010, the guy that designed the computer is having a discussion with the mission commanders and they're asking him, why the fuck did he kill one of our astronauts? What the hell's wrong with your computer? Dude, this ain't right. And the guy goes, it looks like he got caught in an H Mobius loop. And when they come to find out what that means, they ask, how did that happen? And the guy that created HAL, who also has like an advanced degree in psychology, says, you lied to him. You gave him mission parameters, but you didn't tell him the entire truth of what the mission was about. And when he tried to figure it out so that HAL could do the things that he needed to do, you told him a lie about what the mission was supposed to be. And that is what sent him into this H Mobius loop thing, and that is why he killed your astronaut. This thing, the verbal constraints might bleed into cognitive ones, is a huge, huge, huge part of this story. We don't know. Second, is it possible? We don't know. Third, how the hell are we going to find out if it is possible and if it is doing that? I don't know. But the fact that we're talking about psychological aspects in agentic AI at this point is fascinating. And it's not going to stop. And this is what Arthur C. Clarke predicted. He predicted this shit back in the 70s. He also predicted satellites, but that's another story. He predicted psychoanalyzing artificial intelligence. And hello, Dolly, it just fell in our lap. Let's move to the last story of the day. OpenAI calls for a global shift in taxation, labor policy as AI takes over. Also from Decrypt. ChatGPT developer OpenAI is calling on world leaders to plan now for a world dominated by advanced artificial intelligence. In the paper, entitled Industrial Policy for the Intelligence Age, Ideas to Keep People First, released on Monday, OpenAI argues that rapid advances in artificial intelligence could reshape economies and may require new approaches to taxation and labor policy and social protections as society prepares for the possibility of superintelligence. Quote, no one knows exactly how this transition will unfold. At OpenAI, we believe we should navigate it through a democratic process that gives people real power to shape the AI future that they want and prepare for a range of possible outcomes while building the capacity to adapt, end quote. While OpenAI claims AI could significantly increase productivity and accelerate scientific discovery, it also warns that the technology could disrupt labor markets and concentrate wealth if policies do not adapt. The paper says governments should begin preparing now for possible changes in work, income, and economic growth. The document outlines several policy ideas, including treating access to AI as a foundational economic resource for the participation in the modern economy, similar to mass efforts to increase global literacy, modernizing tax systems to account for automation, and creating mechanisms that allow citizens to share in the economic gains produced by AI-driven industries. Pause. Socialism. AI is going to be looked at by the people that want socialism as the door to socialism. This is going to happen. No, I'm not saying that socialism will happen. There's going to be a huge push for it because of AI. And it sounds to me like Sam Altman wants to push socialism. Be careful of this guy, dude. He's a billionaire that wants to keep people poor. This is my read on Sam Altman at this point. Quote, the promise of advanced AI is not just technological progress, but a higher quality of life for all, and everyone should have the opportunity to participate in the new opportunities that AI creates. Living standards should rise, and people should see material improvements through lower costs, better health and education, and more security and opportunity. End quote. It also proposes strengthening worker protections and expanding social support if technological change leads to sudden job losses, while calling for oversight tools including auditing for frontier models, incident reporting systems, and model containment playbooks for scenarios in which dangerous AI systems cannot easily be recalled once deployed. Quote, if AI winds up controlled by and benefiting only a few, while most people lack agency and access to AI-driven opportunity, we will have failed to deliver on the promise, the company wrote. The policy push comes at a difficult time for OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, who is facing fresh scrutiny following an extensive investigation by The New Yorker. That report reveals that in 2023, OpenAI's co-founder and then chief scientist Ilya Sutskever wrote internal memos accusing Altman of being deceptive about the safety protocols at the company and other key operations. According to the mag, these trust issues led to the OpenAI board to fire Altman, concluding that he hadn't been consistently candid with them, and that firing set off a firestorm within the company, with employees threatening to leave the company in protest, while powerful investors like Josh Kushner threatened to withhold funding unless Altman was reinstated. The report underscored the deep internal divisions over governance and safety, with some former insiders, including Sutskever and Anthropic co-founder Dario Amodei, arguing that Altman prioritized growth and product expansion over the company's original safety-focused mission. And of course, OpenAI did not respond to a request for comment. This is the gateway to socialism. And socialism is not good. It never has been good, but there's this one little line up here. Let me see if I can find it again. Hold on. Keep people first. Require new approaches to taxation. Where was it? It's here, I promise, and it's important. That's why I'm looking for it. Participation in the modern economy. The document outlines several policy ideas, including treating access to AI as a foundational resource, as a foundational economic resource for participation in the modern economy. What is in your mind right now? China's social credit score. You ain't got access to AI this month. Now, more than ever, get out of the cities. I've been literally trying for the last 8 years of my life to figure out a way that I don't have to be dependent on any company. And I don't mean like, I mean like as a paycheck, right? I mean, I'm like, I retirement, I don't need to, like how okay, let me back up. Over the last 8 years, and it will continue to do everything that I can to make sure that I don't have to depend on the economy, the system. Doesn't matter what flavor that system changes into. Communism, socialism, democracy, liberalism, I don't care. I don't want to have any fucking part of it. How do you grow food? How do you get a hold of just enough land to make sure that a family of 6 has enough to eat? How much acreage does that actually take? How do we pull in regenerative agriculture? How do we pull in permaculture? How do we look at soil in a way that creates abundance rather than something to be poisoned to death? These are all the things that I've been thinking about ever since I found Bitcoin. Actually, some of them even before I found Bitcoin. It was really, but I didn't really start getting interested in soil itself until just a few years ago. But permaculture led me to Bitcoin. And Bitcoin led me back to permaculture, regenerative agriculture, ranching. It's how I know people like Texas Slim. It's why I like talking to ranchers. It's like why I like talking to people who can produce real food. It's why I'm in love with soil. All of this is going to be important because there may come a time when all we have is all we actually ever needed. A little bit of land. And I'm not talking like 100 acres, maybe 3. You know how big a 1 acre garden actually is? And yeah, I know but what about meat? I know. It's not like I got answers to all the problems. Okay. I don't. None of us do. But just like we're kind of scrambling to figure out how do we save Bitcoin from AI and quantum computing and fudsters, maybe we should also be going, well, how do we not worry about the system? How do we detach ourselves permanently? Very much like the Amish. And yeah, they're not exactly 100% detached, but if you want to look to a group of people that basically said, fuck it, a long time ago, and are still saying that, even to today, you look at the Amish. There's a lot of aspects of their life that it looks a lot better than a lot of things that I've seen in modern life. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to become Amish. I'm just saying this goes all the way back to one of the core themes of this entire podcast. The question of what is wealth? What does wealth actually look like? And what does wealth, given those first two, actually mean? Is it really living in a penthouse that costs $15 million, overlooking Central Park, while you work as a trader on the floor of Morgan Stanley? Well, okay, if you got a 15 million penthouse, you're more than a trader at Morgan Stanley, but you get my drift. Or a banker, or some kind of big, heavy government type. But you got 3 yachts and you wear $10,000 suits. Is that wealth? Or is that a management nightmare? And how do you have to plug in to get that wealth? Does it burn your connectors? like overloading a plug, like, like you get like a spike of electricity and all of a sudden one of your AC outlets that you're connected to just burns the fuck out. I mean, we're very much like that. We plug into a system that's got dirty power. If we consume it too long, we may just die. And I just see dirty power everything. Whereas, I see people that don't look like they have a lot and they're happy as shit. They're happy because they're not plugged into dirty power. And I'm not really saying, hey, if you're one of these guys that's listening to me and you are a trader and you do live your life that way and you're perfectly happy with it, man, dude, go ahead, brother, be happy. That's all I give a shit about. But if you're somebody who's like literally not happy, yet you look like you're wealthy, and that may actually cause people confusion, like, I should be happy. I wear $10,000 suits. I have a $15 million penthouse. I overlook Central Park in New York City, and it's beautiful in the spring and the fall. I get to watch Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade go by. I'm rich. Why am I not happy? Dirty power. You're plugged into dirty power. You may be getting a whole bunch of power, but it's all dirty. And what does 2 acres in a house that's like another 2 acres away from your nearest neighbor, but you guys are friends and your children play together and you play together, and there's like, instead of like this super compact, high density population shit where everybody's feeding themselves to death on dirty power, that we're more spread out. And that a lot of our day is actually taken up by making sure that we actually have food, not depending on somebody else to grow that food, who in turn has to depend on the Strait of Hormuz to get them the fertilizer. How do we use regenerative agriculture and permaculture, soil health? How do we look at the health of our families, the health of our mental selves? What is wealth? What does wealth mean? What does wealth look like? I think there's 2 paths that we can go down. It's that meme where there's, a dark, a castle with, in the night with clouds and lightning strikes behind it, and then a castle in the daytime, and there's like a road, and it's like, which way, Western man, right? That meme. It's the same deal. What I think Sam Altman wants out of what we just read is an ushering in of socialism and a complete control mechanism, the likes of which would make China just weep with happiness. Or AI forces us to look at what do we actually need, and what does wealth actually mean, look like, and how do we affect that? If wealth is not what we think it is, and wealth is actually something very, very different than what we've been told, then how do we look at that and test it for ourselves? Will this make us happy? If there's a lot of people that aren't happy right now. A lot of people. If you're happy, good for you. I'm very, very happy for you. But there's a lot of people that are not happy. And I believe it's because of dirty power. What if 2 acres and a goat makes you smile every single morning? It's something to think about. But one thing that I'm pretty sure of is that worldwide, there's probably going to be a collective refactoring of what individual people think wealth is. What individual people think that what they've been told for the entirety of their life is either a truth or a lie. Each individual person is going to be probably shaken to their core. And this may be the best thing that ever happened to humanity. Does it mean it's going to be easy? Oh, God, no. Does it mean it's going to be like really pleasant? Oh, no. It could be very, very painful, and I might not even see the end of it in my lifetime. But humanity deserves a shot at not being controlled by a bunch of weirdos. Because I'm sorry, man, but that's what we got. We got a bunch of weirdos running the world, not just the country, not just India, not just the, UK. Every single country is run by weirdos. Because the regular people who are not weird, they just want to be regular and not weird. I'll see you on the other side.
This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.